Boom, and we are live. Welcome to Tokyo Tonight 2. I've got to be quiet tonight because all the doors in the house are open because it's very hot. All the air conditioning is on. Of course, the World Cup final is about to start in about 1.5 hours, so I'm sure people are staying up for or are looking forward to that. Also, if you're in Japan, Prime Day on Amazon starts at the same time. It starts at midnight. So I suppose if you're really keen, you might stay up then, but yeah, there's a lot happening in 1.5 hours. I don't have that many subjects. I'm going to talk a little bit more softly than usual. However, I've got a few updates, including I mentioned last week, some updates with the site coming up. Almost there. Almost there. I was hoping we'd be fully there. We're not quite fully there, but where we're at. In fact, I'll give an update on that in a minute. Just want to say hello to Andrea Moboy. I know you're up very, very late, and very good to see you there, Lauren Sakai. Good to have you along. ASDF, Bikuri Mark 12131, Yellow indeed, and Chris. Hello. It's okay if you don't care for soccer. Actually, I've been terrible. Most of the games have been on at like 1 o'clock in the morning or something here. I've been watching them in bed and then like turning them off in the second half and waking up and checking the score. I'm not that into it, but you know, it's interesting to watch. France, Croatia. I guess Croatia, first time they've been in it. They're a small country, same size as New Zealand in terms of population. It'd be nice if they do it. Hey, James Kelly, good to see you. Hi indeed. So yes, in terms of what's been happening with myChan TV, so we are, there's two things I'm trying to fix. One is the mobile interface, which isn't updated at the moment. We didn't get that done. The other thing was, I can remember the codes for them, T7, which was, there's just lots of little sort of tweaks. So there was a select all at the moment. There's the thing, we've had to put a limit on the number of channels you can select using the select all tool to be able to create bundles at 275. Just if it gets too big, it all starts acting too buggy, and we needed to fix that. The final thing we're trying to fix at the moment is the feature that shows how old channels are, because when that works, it makes it so convenient, given that you can unsubscribe and you can tidy up your subscriptions. It really gives you a chance to actually look through all your subscriptions and see the channels that are most active, see the channels that are dead, they haven't been posting videos for years, and you can go in there and you can you can unsubscribe to them and tidy up and make your subscriptions more manageable. So it's working. You can even sort your subscriptions so it shows the oldest ones first, but at the moment what happens when you sort it is that it looks a little bit like some of it comes out a bit weird, and we're just trying to fix up that final thing. I did a couple of tests this week, but there's still bugs in it. So we're this close to being final and solid where I can say it's out of beta. It's still in beta at the moment, and there's still actually a few other things I'd like to improve, but I've got to stop. The other thing is I really do want to move to working on a mobile app, and for that I really want to move getting it into beta, to getting lots of people to see it and to like it, and use that to get a Kickstarter, because I'm out. At the moment I've been doing nothing but spending on it, and it's adding up, and I really do want to make. And the thing is, if I can get some help and some support if you see it working solid and stable, which it's really close to being, I'm really hoping that people will like the idea of having this app on iOS, on Apple TV, on Fire TV, on Android. It'd be really, really nice to have. And you know what? I think that makes more sense in some ways, at least for now, at least for trying to get back what I've put into it. Than trying to set up a whole subscription thing. I mean, again, to try to set up the extra pro features and everything that I like to do to make it worthwhile for people who subscribe, it's going to take a lot more time. It's going to cost a lot more for development, and I just kind of want to stop it, get it stable, solid, and do something more concrete where I can say, look, we're going to do something that does something like this, except it's going to look very nice and it's going to be a mobile app. So that is the plan. And yeah, Lauren, so I'm hoping you'll be among the cheerleaders when it's ready. I'm hoping I'll actually let some big YouTubers know about it and see if I can get some help promoting the website as a stable, really awesome way to watch. I mean, now it's been working really well. I am actually really watching it a lot at the moment. Of course, as a result, I'm still finding lots, bugs and things to fix. But I'm hoping that if enough people recognize how cool this thing is, and it is. I mean, it is. And especially when it's working, and then I'm hoping that we're going to get, I'm hoping that'll be good for something like a Kickstarter, where again, which will help me go and make the apps for everything to get it working the way I want it to work. So, some of the things, actually, one of the really cool features is that, and I started doing this today actually, is that you might not realize this, you can actually share a bundle, a video auto playing bundle that you make with anybody. They can't customize or anything like that. You need to be logged in to be able to actually, have your own bundles, but you can actually, we don't put any restriction on that at the moment. So one thing I'm doing on the, sorry Andrea, I'll be just about done. One thing that I'm doing at the moment with the main myChan TV channel is I'm actually subscribing to all of the top trending content on YouTube, just to create a bunch of like de facto genre based bundles for people who want to find good content to subscribe to that's like based on what's popular. I had a lot of fun doing that. I actually found a lot of good channels I'm going to subscribe to with my Simon channel, because there's actually quite a lot of good, really good stuff, a lot of good news, entertainment, film, just kind of random stuff that people watch when they just want to binge on YouTube. But anyway, I'm going to be sharing lots and lots of stuff more proactively going forward. I made a whole bunch of tips videos on how to use the site and how to get the most out of the features on the site. I'm also going to basically you're going to see a lot of blogs, so please, if you want, follow the updates and look for more coming out. Hopefully it will be done soon. Hey Davo, good to see you, and Mr. Cordy Chap, good to see you all. Getting really tired from news lately. Okay, what news? Well, so I guess from last week there's been good. It's kind of hard to get into news when people are tired from all the news. It all gets so convoluted and uncertain. Well, yes, that's what this show is for. But would make it easy to share multiple channels quickly. Well, that's right, exactly what you should do. It'll just show the videos in that thing. You can do that right now, and you can actually bookmark directly to a bundle if you want. For me, the big fun is actually organizing the channels, but you can, the autoplay is actually, it works. Yes, there's a lot of sport going on. Anyway, let's go into so this is what I try to do. For all the news being too convoluted and too complicated, and no fake news other than the news that I fake. Here it is, myChan TV. Let's get into the topics for tonight. If we have some time left over, I don't think there's a lot tonight. I'm hoping we'll finish early, and I might even make a tune at the end. So myChan, we've just been talking about that, so we'll go on. Of course, Japan executed 6 members of Shinrikyo last week. I think I talked about this. I'm against the death penalty. EU criticised them. NHK did a special on it, actually pretty thoroughly, talking about the debate and the process that went into it. There are like 116 people currently on death row. 13 people sentenced to death from Shinrikyo, 6 were executed at the same time. Of course, to the extent that it's the heaviest penalty available and they deserve the heaviest penalty, of course, no sympathy for them, but at the same time, a government suddenly executing, 6 or 7 people isn't really something that we associate with democratic countries. America does it every now and then, some states, but, it's not really a good look. The NHK coverage of it actually goes into the fact that, yes, indeed, the Minister of Justice signed off. Part of the reason that they also kept these people on death row for more than 20 years was they were waiting to catch all the other members, and they were hoping that they might be able to use to testify against one another. So, they were sitting there for a long time. But in the end of the day, it's just, to me, it's just not, it just shouldn't be a way to punish people, but they certainly deserved whatever they got. By the way, hey Bradford, good to see you, and Mary Lagos, good evening, good to see you there, good morning where you are, and the J-Vlog, good morning to you. Lady said to go to 7-Eleven for some lemon sour for this live stream. Well, please, I hope you enjoy your lemon sour, and I hope that you enjoy the live stream. This is still just a rumor level, but remember I talked the other week about how these space tourist flights, Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin, are both talking about suborbital, so not orbital, but just going up into space for a little bit and kind of being weightless and coming down again, which actually wouldn't be all that long, but they're talking about doing that for $200,000. Not quite, well, I guess, if you want to be the very first going up there, it's pretty cheap, I suppose, if you're like a Justin Bieber or something like that, but no, for a fellow like me, when it comes down to 20 grand or below, I'd seriously, and orbital, I'd really, you really want to be orbital, you really want to go around for a few laps if you're going to be up there, but I think this is very, very cool, and it's just really cool that all of a sudden this is becoming real, that space tourism is really happening. That excites me, it's awesome. This week, one thing about Tokyo is the summer, apart from the fact that summer just sucks, there's this funny thing. It's so crazy humid. The air gets really muggy just from all the sort of Filipino South Pacific sort of south of Japan Pacific kind of humidity that comes up to Tokyo. It means that we get these amazing sunsets in Tokyo during summer. You've seen all the Instagrams. I mean, I post them all the time. We get these. The other night, the sky was just completely pink. I mean, like crazy. Yeah, I took a photo and put it on Instagram there. But yeah, you get these things where because Tokyo is surrounded by mountains, the high stream, the weather streams kind of pass really. The high altitude air over Tokyo moves really fast, while the air below it's really muggy, which means that you get these really interesting clouds, awesome sunsets. It's one reason that they actually took to burning, to firebombing Tokyo. They couldn't precision bomb in Tokyo because the jet streams over Tokyo are so crazy, and they produce these really cool these really cool skies. Hey, well look, Andrea Mulberry, if that's what you think about Justin Bieber, think about it. I mean, it's still a certain degree of risk associated with getting onto one of these rockets. It's a controlled explosive, so perhaps you might want to help pay for his flight. I mean, I don't know, it's up to you. Hey, Sergeant Bilko, good to see you. Nice to have our Swedish contingent there. Yes, this is kind of interesting. Mental health and the relentless YouTuber life. This is something, I must admit, a lot of people, YouTubers themselves, I've talked with people from different sort of YouTube multi-channel networks, and they talk about how it's annoying to them that you get a lot of people who become YouTubers and the idea that they can be kind of like, they can run their own lives, which when you're young, the idea that you can do whatever you love doing and you can control your entire life and make money from it is extremely appealing. It's like the ultimate freeing yourself from both the responsibility of being at home and needing to hold down a job, being told what to do either. However, often these people don't have a lot of life skills for doing that, and they don't actually fully appreciate that actually being a full-time YouTuber is actually quite tough work. And I know a few people who do it and they're successful at it, but I wouldn't want to do what they do. I quite like this. This is fun, but the idea of like needing to make a video like 5 days a week and to edit it and subtitle it and engage with the community all the time and so on, I mean, you can't, and the fact that there's basically this sort of blending between that being your job and your life at the same time, that's your job 24 hours a day that you can't escape. No thank you. So people don't really appreciate that actually. You think about having a stressful, busy job, and people do YouTube thinking that they're doing it to escape from having a stressful job, busy job. Trust me, a 9 to 5 is much usually both easier and better pay, and you still have free time to yourself to go and go drinking and have fun and be stupid and do all the other sort of stuff. It's people really don't appreciate what they're getting into. It's a bit of a honey trap, the old YouTubing for life thing. And there's an article here from Tube Filter just talking about people who the pressure, burned out at 19, just people who find it a little bit too much, both to cope with the stress of constantly keeping content up, with dealing with constant trolls, and the social aspect can be very draining as well, especially for people who try to attract drama and attract attention from people who are just terrible for that. Ask Elon Musk for a return ticket, indeed. Oh, exactly, hiking guys like that. I mean, people like to throw peanuts at those guys, but holy crap, they work really hard. They're like James Brown. I mean, holy crap. It is tough. It is really tough, and it's particularly the fact that you're dealing with particularly a lot of very young people who aren't very experienced at managing this sort of stuff. The reason I know I don't want to do this is because I've lived enough and I've worked enough that I can have a pretty clear perception of, oh, that's going to be a lot of work. Oh, I don't want to do that. And in a way, the great thing about being young is that you don't see that, and you go and do all this crazy stuff, and you've got the energy to push through it. But spare a moment when you see some YouTuber that you want to go rip on, because it's tough. It's tough. This is interesting as well. If you have if you're streaming on anything else, any other platform, particularly that one on the screen, but I understand, Vimeo, Facebook, Twitch, all those sorts of things. If you go promoting content on other platforms on YouTube, they've always kind of looked the other way, particularly on the gaming content, but now YouTube's obviously being very aggressive about trying to go for that and not coexist with that. So if you do that now, they will not give you a strike. They will ban your channel like immediately. So it's one thing if you're YouTubing and you have like an alternate Vimeo channel. I mean, who has an alternate Vimeo channel? Seriously, but if you did, maybe they don't care about that. Maybe they'll feel sorry for you and let you keep your channel. But if you promote Twitch, you could get in trouble for it. So don't do it. Bit of a heads up and a warning there. This is kind of interesting. NHK, the government broadcaster, the national broadcaster in Japan, has just got permission from the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications to stream NHK content online all the time. There's a good part and a bad part to this. Anyone who was in Japan in 2011 during the big earthquake remembers NHK was basically for a couple of months. It was streamed entirely online all the time. And that was actually really, really awesome. I mean, just the fact that I could watch it wherever I was on my mobile phone from work. It was great for getting information. It was great for sharing information. And actually, as Japanese TV goes, I don't watch anything other than NHK anymore. I find I used to really love the commercial TV, but I just can't get into it anymore. So as an NHK fan, the fact that this is going to be available anywhere that has internet, to me, that's awesome. That's what I want. I mean, I want to throw away pretty much. I'm ready to cancel my Sky Perfect TV after the rugby finishes this year. So on the one hand, that's awesome. But I'll come back to you, ASTF 12131. But the downside is that they're going to use that partly to drum up trying to get a broadcasting fee from everybody with an internet connection, i.e. with a phone or a computer, which is a bit of a scam. It's a bit of a scam, and also they should just pay for it with tax. I don't know why they do this kind of weird quasi-tax broadcasting fee. When it's basically just it is a tax, so just pay for it, take it out of tax. But that's it. The convenience of having NHK available online will be great for people who want to learn Japanese. It'll be great for you people if you want to keep up with life in Japan the way that I keep up with life in Japan. I think it'll be a really good thing. Yes, I know that they stream English on their international side, but still the content there is a couple of days late. It's a bit limited, and actually they have really good Japanese content. So ASTF 12131 says, when you started looking for Japanese YouTubers, you found Watanabe Makoto and found some of the videos really fun to watch and try to understand. It just seems okay for you. But that's exactly my point. Well, it's like these comedians, they portray this I don't give a shit, I'm a funny, easygoing guy thing, when, comedians are famously depressive and suicidal and alcoholic and all this sort of thing. It's sort of like, the whole thing is you need to portray, and this is the image that YouTubers portray. Hikakin portrays this thing. He just sits at home, sits on a sofa, pulls out a camera, produces an interesting show, has millions of fans. Oh, it's so easy, and everyone thinks, oh, I want to do that, and that's why it's like YouTuber was the number one job that kids wanted to be. It's kind of the image that they sell, is that it's easy. And it's kind of funny, like this is what the people from Maker were telling me, the first people did it, the Hikakins, the first people that broke the ground on that, they worked really, really, really hard, and they did it trying to portray that it was really, really easy. The problem is that created a second wave of people that came through who thought it was really, really easy and were trying to do it, and were just complete nightmares to work with. So yeah, that's kind of how they got ahead. Hikakin has an amazing work ethic. I mean, like I said, I remember when he showed up when no Japanese would come to the YouTube parties, and it was all sort of foreigners. It was like a gaijin party, and he'd sit there sort of awkwardly, nervously in the corner. And yeah, I think I remember talking to him 10 years ago, very quietly, and him telling me, yeah, he's got a bit of a plan. And I'm like, okay, you go with that. And he wasn't even like the number one beatboxer at that time, and it was like, oh, he's going to try to push your beatboxing. Well, go for that. Man, I feel like Blockbuster talking to Netflix, not that I tried to give any advice or anything like that, but it is kind of funny, some of this, the quiet ones that turn out, they've got the big plans. What else we got here? Oh yeah, so these Itasha are these, what does it even stand for? I don't know. I mean, Itai Kuruma? I don't know. That's painful. Of course, that's the thing. If you're like a super, super anime, like, married to your pillow kind of anime freak, chances are you'll have a car that's like painted like that, like covered with like anime designs and stuff like that. And you see a few of them around Akihabara, nowhere else in Tokyo. Apparently someone thought it was a good idea to get a taxi made up like this. and the thing about Japan, the thing about it's like the Toyota Century. It's like the most expensive luxury car in Japan is made to look completely anonymous and to look like a crappy 1970-year-old Corona, basically, and it's expensive. People tend to dress down their cars. Now, there is a culture of doing up cars like this among a very, very small number of people, but the thing is that most other people, I don't think it's going to be a pull for getting people to ride in the cab. Maybe I've been here too long that I'm like, oh, I don't want to go near that taxi. It could be fun for tourists, and I suppose that's kind of partly it. But seriously, if you get in that cab, you're only going to Akihabara. You're not going to Ginza. You don't want to be seen getting out of a cab like that in Ginza or anywhere with any sort of taste. Andrew Mulware comments, ABC in Australia will soon be privatised. Only a matter of when. There's a huge stink about it. It'll no longer be a public platform. A few shows have already been axed. Really? They're going to completely sell it off? That's a bit funny. Okay, well, that's interesting. I suppose, will you get out of your broadcasting? Australia has a broadcasting fee, right? I hope you get out of that at least, but given the way everything else is going on TV in Australia, that's that's a bit alarming. This is an interesting one. So, same story as always. The Japanese population is going down. The foreign population is going up like crazy. But particularly in Shinjuku, apparently now, of 20-year-olds in Shinjuku, 1 in 10 now are foreigners. And in fact, some jobs that generally hire part-time 20-year-old staff, like convenience stores and stuff, they can't survive without them. I remember there's a thing in the Nikkei Shimbun, which actually didn't come out. It wouldn't save on this, but I was talking about my experience as well. When you go to the Shinjuku Ward City Council office, it's not your imagination that actually more than half the people there doing paperwork are not Japanese. They're either international couples or foreigners, mostly Chinese and Korean. But there's a lot of us, and the numbers rapidly, as well as Japanese decline, our numbers rapidly going up. When I first got to Japan, the number was like 1 million. It was a really easy to remember number, just less than 1%. And of that, it was like 300,000 were North Korean, 400,000 were Korean, 300,000 were Chinese, 200,000 were Brazilian. Now you have towns like Oizumi, which was the Brazilian town, 20% Brazilian. Now they've got lots of Nepalese, other Asian people, sort of a lot of Vietnamese have come into Japan. I think they've overtaken now Brazilians for the percentage of the population. And and the thing is that very quietly, and this is where I'm really glad that immigration isn't really debated as a policy matter in Japan, the Ministry of Justice is liberalizing. They're making it easier and easier to come and live and work here if that's what you want to do. Hey, Ahmed Usul, good to see you. Long time no see, man. Isn't Tokyo 20% of Japan population-wise at this point? You remember seeing it was 17% a few years back. Yeah, it's a good point, Mary Lagos. It's hello world indeed, Ahmed. There's a bit of a thing about how you define Tokyo's population. If you take it as the central metropolitan 23 wards of Tokyo, the population's actually about 5 million or 6 million, which would even be like a second-tier city in China. However, if you take all the suburbs of Tokyo that feed into Tokyo, as well as all of prefectural Tokyo and all the suburbs around Tokyo that really connect to Tokyo, it's considered to be de facto between 25 and 30 million. And if you take 25 million, the population's 125 million odd, then it's exactly 20%. The other thing is that, of course, where every town in Japan is shrinking and getting older, the young people are moving out, and Tokyo is continuing to increase, but it's increasing with a very low birth rate, i.e. it's increasing because it's taking all the young people, but they're all coming to Tokyo and they're not having kids. So this is actually seen as a policy issue, that people are not staying in rural towns and not having kids, but they're also coming to Tokyo. So yeah, it's really interesting. The J-Vlog, you're so glad your wife doesn't watch this stream. She's a nationalist. I love nationalists. Come on, nationalists love me. Seriously, are you kidding? She doesn't like all the Gaijins coming? Well, believe me, I know that sounds awkward, but I have a pretty good idea what that's like. So sorry to hear that. Andrew Mulware, it's the Liberal Party here wanting to privatise the ABC. It's also announced the same time when the Aussie embassy moved its Israel embassy to Jerusalem. Well, I don't know what to say about that, except, I guess it's all going to be Rupert Murdoch, which probably isn't great for you guys. The thing, I don't know, with Australian TV, I always found that whenever I'm in Australia, you only see Australian news. International content's pretty limited as it is. I'd be still really shocked if they actually fully privatised ABC. It'd be interesting. Scottish nationalists, best nationalists fight me. It's kind of funny. Scottish nationalists are nationalists, except when the son of a Scottish person becomes like the most powerful elected president in the entire world and comes back to Scotland, and then all of a sudden they don't want to own, they want to disown it. It's like I'm sure deep down in their hearts they wish that his mum was English. All awkward indeed. Define nationalist, just wanting to live by your rules. Yes, I wonder what that means anyway. So anyway, more and more foreigners are coming, and look, well, and we're needed, frankly. I mean, this is the thing. Companies, no matter what people think about the idea of social disruption, or thinking about all the horror news that they see of Europe or America, and thinking multicultural societies are dangerous and bad, at the same time, factories do not have enough places to employ, and this is the thing. They need people to come in, and they have jobs waiting. They have social integration waiting. I mean, Japan's a relatively easy society to fit in. And yes, managing, of course, the influx of gaijins is a big thing. That continues to be an issue, but at the same time, oh dear, Tyrone D raises your Scottish nationalist and raises you with an Irish nationalist. I don't want to go anywhere near that. So it is continuing to evolve there, and I'm, I guess, a part of that. Of course, tonight, Croatia versus France in the World Cup final. Best of luck to both of them. Croatia's amazing. 4 million people, and they're in the World Cup final. Of course, they're all enormous. I had a fantastic vacation in Croatia a few years ago. I've never been to France, actually. France, of course, though, however, Mbappe, that amazing player who completely showed up the Brazilians. And a wonderfully, diverse team for the French. I think it's another good sort of flagship for the idea of immigration. In fact, if you look at if the French team wins, there again, if the Croatian team wins, you've got a country that was like torn apart by war just 20 years ago, and is that small. To see them win would also be amazing. Either way, it's going to be a great game. I'm going to stay up and watch it, and 1 hour from now, so that should be pretty fun. That said, YouTube was showing the World Cup on YouTube TV. And you do assume that Google and the internet is big enough that they can handle it, but apparently YouTube collapsed. I don't know if it was from too many users or what the cause was, or if it was just a glitch that YouTube had. But of all the times to have a glitch was during, I believe, the Croatia. Which game was it? During one of the semi-finals. Anyway, YouTube went down for like an hour, and YouTube TV. This is the one that you pay $40 a month for. Really, really not a good look to be out. So they're actually offering everybody something like a month's free use of basically $40 refund to everybody from this. But yeah, it was. In fact, what was it again? Yeah, in any case, the outages were not good, and this is the thing, when everyone watches stuff at the same time, you've got to make sure you've got enough bandwidth and everything there ready, so hopefully that won't happen there during the final. This is kind of interesting. This is the sort of thing that you see all the time. During the terrible floods that killed over 200 people, and I actually do want to update you a little bit on this. I didn't make big world news because it wasn't like a sudden, it wasn't like an earthquake or an easily definable event. It was like 3 or 4 days of really, really heavy rain associated with a tropical depression that was the leftover remnants of a typhoon, but still had all the rain from the typhoon. And it went over Kyushu and Kyoto and Hiroshima and Okayama, and it also kind of curved out through the Sea of Japan to Korea, and then it came back to Hokkaido. But there was particularly intense rain, like record rainfalls. In a country that gets intense rainfall all the time this time of year, and typhoons all the time, there was still on top of that record-breaking rainfall, particularly in Okayama and Hiroshima. Now, the thing about Japan that you might not realize or recall, everyone's got a very urban idea of Japan. The thing is that Japan is actually one of the least urbanized countries in the world. It's actually a percentage of the surface area of Japan that's actually built upon is smaller than New Zealand, for example. New Zealand only has 4 million people, and yet Japan has less built up area. I remember hearing a stat about this. It's kind of mind-blowing, and the reason is that the terrain is so rugged in Japan. cities, when they build, because landslides and earthquakes and typhoons are so common, they can't build on hills. They do it in Hakodate, they do it in Nagasaki, but generally speaking, most places in Japan, they just bulldoze mountains flat to push out the cities. So what you get is these cities that are on the little flat bits that are wedged in between these sort of mountains and stuff like that. Even Tokyo, this is the case. And when the moment that you get to the edge of the cities, you have these amazing, steep, rugged, just vertical landscapes, just really sort of wrinkled up, mountainous, extremely mountainous, rugged geology. And so what happens when you get a lot of rain, in countries like New Zealand, or this is what happened in North Korea, where they deforested all the mountains and it caused all these floods and landslides, because the trees, they stabilize the soil and they absorb a lot of the rain and so on. In Japan, they don't do that. These are all forested hills, but there was so much rain that basically all of these hills started collapsing with the trees. And what you got were these massive mudslides that contained trees and boulders, and they would just go down, and they'd go down into the towns that were in the bottom of the valleys around where these landslides were. And particularly in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, these mountains just got overloaded with water and mud, and they all just piled into these towns, and like a tsunami pretty much, they just went and destroyed everything that they ran into. They went through all of these houses, and through all of that, they had to evacuate something like, it ended up being like 8 million people at a time needed to be evacuated. I mean, in the valleys at the bottom where the towns were, they were flooded, and coming down from the top of the mountains, and this is the other problem that we have now, you had all these successive landslides that cut the towns off, destroyed houses with people in them, and cut off the access to rescue and all that sort of stuff. So all of these towns, even when people were able to get out of their houses in time, they're buried in mud. And the other problem is that these landslides happen all over the place, not just where there were towns. They also happen up in the mountains where there are dams and stuff like that, and they've blocked up all of these dams. So there is now a risk of these dams bursting all over the place because there are so many of these landslides. So it's an ongoing problem. Not only that, but when the rain finally stopped, it stopped about Monday or Tuesday, we had a heat wave this week. And the days after that, it's been like 37 degrees today, and for the last couple of days in Tokyo. In Kyoto and Hiroshima, where the floods were, it was nearly 40 degrees. They had like 38, 39 degrees. So immediately people are trying to get rid of all of the mud, but the problem is that there's all the water is cut off, ironically, because the sewage system is broken down because of it all being cut off. And on top of that, they've had 38-degree heat where they're trying to still rescue and clean up these towns. And it's going to be followed up probably by another storm. So they've got a really, really tough. On top of that, that's got nothing to do with this picture actually. What this picture is about is what you sometimes get is where there's an old man who was just trapped inside a car. Again, because of the pressure of the water, he wasn't able to open the door. And the car was lifted up and it was floating. And he couldn't get out. Someone was able to wade over to him and tried to open his door and couldn't open his door, so he shouted at the old man, wind down your window. He couldn't wind the window all the way down, but he wound it halfway down, and he said climb through. And he turned around, the guy who was pulling him out turned around to the camera guy who's standing where you can see. I said, get over here and help me, someone help me. And he's shouting on video, on the TV thing. The video's getting it, the TV, Fuji TV, saying, oh, high drama, someone rescues, is someone going to help him? It does. There was something I always used to say in New Zealand, which was that I love hanging out with my Japanese friends, but if I was ever in a burning building, I'd want my Korean friends to be outside. I did notice there was this lack of decisiveness among my Japanese friends. What do we do next? Well, let's shuffle around, do nothing for 15 minutes, and wait for for the whole group to decide without someone saying something. My Korean friends would just make decisions, and this was a great illustration of kind of my point that normally human being, there are times where yes, it's great footage, but at the same time there's a guy there about to drown in his car and someone's turning around and saying, please help me, you should help. That said, it was interesting. There's actually a debate on this which we had on Twitter, and there were some people involved in rescue, like in the fire safety service and so on, and they said actually having amateurs coming in and trying to help can actually end up causing more trouble than not, and don't criticize the cameraman for not doing it. Might have saved a secondary situation. So it's interesting. But that said, in Hiroshima and Okayama in particular, but also in Ehime Prefecture and Fukuoka Prefecture, they've suffered really, really and they're still suffering. Right now they're still cut off, and they've lost everything. A lot of people down there. There's still people living in these gymnasiums. They have no access to water. They're cut off from support. They're homeless, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people still. So this is the scale of a major earthquake. It hasn't really made big news, but more than 200 people are dead. They're still searching for dozens of missing people. It's a big deal, and it's just from rain. I mean, it's kind of crazy. People talk about climate change, of course, you have to mention it. Tokyo is hotter than it ever was, but it's hotter because of the heat island effect. It's because Tokyo's become so built up and urbanized that it actually creates a bubble of heat above the city that itself reinforces, and this is why Tokyo is actually now more than 5 degrees hotter on average during summer than it was 20 years ago. And this is ironic. It was even like 40 years ago. When they had the Olympics, they realized it was too hot to do the Olympics in July, so they scheduled it for October instead. But the Olympics, we've got 37 degrees here at the moment and feels like 40 based on humidity. And they're planning to do the Olympics like in late July in 2020, which again seems like a terrible idea. But on top of the separate thing of the heat island effect in Tokyo, you do have all of it. These storms they're always becoming more and more intense. And it's and Japan is extremely vulnerable to natural disasters. People live with it as a risk, but it's one thing to be making jokes about how it means we can have more barbecues in winter and stuff like that and all that sort of stuff, but bring back coal and all that sort of stuff, but shit is real. People die from this stuff, and there is a degree of control that we have over it that we're just choosing to be ignorant and not exercise, which is frustrating. Anyway, boom, 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 boom. Walmart owns Seiyu. They actually, about 2008, they came in and they took over one of Japan's biggest supermarket chains called Seiyu. They like how they have kind of cheap department stores around sort of rural supermarkets and rural train stations and supermarkets. They employ a whole lot of people. Where I used to live in Takao, for example, they own pretty much the station buildings, all the supermarkets and everything around that. So they're kind of an institution where they exist. But the thing is that they've got this, they're not very profitable because they have a very, very expensive supply chain. They employ tons of people that they can't fire. You can't do that in Japan, not with permanent employees anyway. And just economically, they were just heading to crash. And Walmart saw the opportunity in about 2008. I think they intervened to come and buy Seiyu, the world's largest company. Actually, Walmart. They employ like 3 million people. I think they're by revenue, they're the largest company in the world. And it was interesting. I myself included was looking forward to having some Walmarts in Japan. I wasn't expecting that they'd convert all the Seiyus. I couldn't imagine them converting Seiyus into Walmarts. But the idea that the brand was coming on shore was kind of interesting, and they've kind of stuck with it for 10 years. The thing is that, of course, Seiyu has stayed Seiyu. It's just been owned by Walmart. It's a parent company. And Walmart hasn't really visibly done very much to change Seiyu. And I guess this is the thing. They basically took over a troubled supermarket chain. And I'm sure they probably tried to do some things. But, the logistics networks associated with it are very, very Japanese, and they're owned by Seiyu. The employees, the way that the supermarkets are managed, it's very hard to see any sort of an impact. Rumors broke this week that Walmart had been reaching out to potential companies to take it over from it, i.e. it was looking for a buyer. Maybe someone forgot to sign an NDA. Walmart didn't announce that it was doing this, and when one of the people who turned them down leaked to the press that Walmart's looking to sell Seiyu, of course it triggered a huge panic. Of course, Seiyu people being afraid that they're going to be sold off. Of course, it's also not a good look for Walmart for it to get out that you're trying to sell this struggling business before you have a buyer, right? You want to have a buyer. You want to say, oh, this is a great business, buy it from me. But now it sounds like, because they don't have a buyer, and someone who turned them down has also leaked that, they're looking for a buyer. So they look like they're in trouble. And it looks like Walmart's going to get added to the list. Vodafone, Nokia, just tons of foreign companies that came to Japan expecting to come in, take over a struggling local business, show them how business is really done with Western business ways, and it looks like they're preparing to leave with their tail between their legs, which is interesting. I mean, for me, this is a great subject for a book, and it'd be really great to understand sort of what's going on in terms of, I'm assuming it's happening, that it hasn't gone to the way that they expected. It'd be really interesting to understand what happened. Bradley Ford, a few of your friends at Seiyu HQ, it hasn't changed. I don't know anyone in Seiyu. I know some people who have been interviewed by Seiyu, and yeah, it sounds like it's still very much Seiyu and definitely not Walmart. Even when Walmart people are actually interviewing, like it's a very dug-in culture that's resistant to change. And this is the thing. I mean, and they're willing. They're probably willing to take the entire company down before they acknowledge the need to change. The way that they do business, and that's probably what's going to happen. People always assume when you come in and you're saving the business that they're going to be so appreciative that they're going to take your suggestions seriously. But don't come to Japan without any preparation and expect that's the case, because that's not going to be the case, and that's what's happened time and time again. So yeah, interesting. This is interesting. So this guy, a Swedish fellow, he became a Japanese citizen, and he is called Tatsumasa Murasame. He took a Japanese name with the citizenship, which I don't think you have to do anymore, but you used to have to do. He's apparently a landscape gardener, and he enjoys this. He's got a Twitter account where he body builds and he landscapes, and apparently he's a naturalized Japanese. Yeah, good on the guy. I mean, apparently he has lots of fans. I must admit, I guess he comes from the same school of thought as me, of coming in and wanting to be the most hardcore guy ever. I can't say I was ever motivated to really. I mean, seriously, the thing is, I look at that guy's really dehydrated. I mean, yes, he's in fantastic shape. He works out, but when your muscles are popping out like that, you only get that way by basically dehydrating yourself for a very long time. So he's probably actually barely standing up when that's actually being shown, but it looks very good, right? I mean, you basically, you get ready to go out and pro wrestle and do whatever. But that said, guy's very, very cool. He's got a Twitter account. He's another one I know. So there's a couple of them. It is funny to me as well how the naturalized Japanese community is so small, and they all just seem to dislike each other so much. There's Marty Tsurunen, who's in Parliament. There's Aruto Debido, who's a human rights activist. There's Eido Inoue, who's been on Two and a Half Fuyaji's, and he dislikes Eido, but he's got a great guide on naturalizing. And there's this guy, and there you go. I mean, seriously, is that really? Do you really need to landscape? I mean, that's yeah. I mean, sure, I probably would do the same in his situation. Not that I'd ever be in his situation. So there we go. Oh, this is 1 in 10 Tokyoites enough. In their 20s and now foreigners. So this is interesting. This is what I was talking about earlier. Actually, I talked about this. I thought this was gone. North Korea calling America gangsters. Here are the flooded towns. I mean, again, these are in the bottom of these very deep valleys, and on the edges there have been these landslides that have bowled all these houses over. So they're in a pretty bad way. Okayama and Hiroshima in particular. And on top of that, as I was just saying, now there's basically no sanitation. There's no water. There's 38-degree heat. They're in a bad way. There are volunteers and stuff being sent down there, but it's being sort of, it's a very tough recovery at the moment. Strategic landscaping indeed. Dave Hunter is cuddly, everybody. You heard it here first. Dave Hunter is cuddly. Good to know. Yes, I'll bear that in mind. Become one. I think I mentioned this before. Team Labo is awesome. They've just built a permanent art gallery in Odaiba. It's awesome. At the moment, it's like you can reserve to go there online, but it's like the waiting list is for months at the moment. But when it becomes available, when it settles down, because it's brand new at the moment, go there. I've seen a few of their exhibitions, and they are just incredible. It'll be one of the things to actually come and really see. It'll be one of the highlights, actually, during the Olympics, if you ask me. They do amazing stuff. Not only is it all digital and cool like that, but it's also interactive, and it's like, and they do all this really, really cool stuff. So, yes. So I get more of the floods. I mean, just as an illustration, this is just, Japan is like this. I mean, it's kind of scary. And I think there's a story here. This isn't the one, but if this had happened in Tokyo, people saying it would have killed 5,000 people on the same scale. Tokyo was very lucky the rain avoided it. Also, of course, Tokyo has these famous, massive flood drains that I think we've talked about before, and sometimes get featured on documentaries, and they happen because of this. Because this sort of thing always used to happen regularly in Tokyo. Tokyo was actually built on a whole bunch of rivers. It used to, where the Yamanote line is and the Chuo line were all actually canals that were basically modified rivers that and instead of trains they used like barges to move everything around in those days, and they would flood all the time. So in order to avoid this happening, Tokyo's taken really extreme measures to divert all sort of floodwaters and so on, but still just crazy stuff. Yes, we had the earthquake last week. I think I mentioned this last week. We had this magnitude 6 earthquake near Tokyo while the floods were going on, and I must admit, every time I read people talking about quakes, it's like, oh my god, that was a really big shake, or that was a really long one, or whatever. I just feel like every time I want to tweet back, that's what she said. It's kind of funny. You should, next time, seriously, you won't be able to get this out of your head. Next time you're watching tweets about earthquakes, try not to think about how many times you can say that's what she said as a response. Yeah, that'll mess you up. Cranky is here. I think I mentioned this last week. Cranky is here. So I'm actually done with my subjects. Let me come back and repeat what I said at the start of the show about myChan TV. We're like this close. There's only one thing I'm trying to just get stable at the moment, which is the being able to see how recently a channel was updated, and be able to sort the channel so you can see all the oldest channels, the channels that have not been updated for years and years and years, so you can see them to be able to unsubscribe them en masse. But basically the site is almost there. It's really, really cool at the moment. I've actually started making videos on myChan TV for tips on all the cool things that you can do with the site. I mentioned at the start of the show that one thing that you can do that I don't actually advertise, I haven't advertised, but you can actually do is I can create a bundle like 5 cool news channels or something, some sort of bundle that I like of recommended channels, and I can share it with you, and you can just click on that and you can watch it like TV, and it'll always be new whenever you watch it, and you can get the channels from it to go and subscribe to as well. So it's got cool features like that. You can, of course, if you hook up your own channel, you can create your own bundles and so on, and customize your own channels. And it's working really, really well, and it's almost there. It's almost there, ready for out of beta. It's got a couple more bugs, which I was hoping would be done today, but they'll be out next week, I'm hoping. And then I want to get on to announcing it's out of beta and getting it in the hands of as many users as possible. And then if people still want the idea of a mobile app, which I think I'd really like to do next, I want to do a Kickstarter for it. In order to do a Kickstarter for it, I need to get the word out about the app, so a little bit longer to get it stable, and then I really want to start, and I would like to ask for your help letting everybody know when we do that. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it. I am going to do a tune because we have some spare time. And of course, good luck to both France and Croatia fans for the World Cup final starting in 45 minutes. And remember, if you're in Japan as well, we have both the World Cup final and Prime Day starting. So I might go and buy some electronics or something. I don't know. So yes, have a good one, everybody. I'm going to plug in. Give me a genre of music. Give me a genre of music to play, and I will play it while I set up. So I'm going to look at the comments, whichever looks like hip hop, drum and bass, house, techno, something else, something that I can do. Give me something to play around with. For those of you who want to go, I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Let's disconnect that. And boom, 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 boom. Okay, let's get this iPad, let's just change the interface. Okay, that's working. That's unusual. Let's plug in. Okay, what's the genre? Slam dunk punk, Eurobeat. What's a Eurobeat? It's interesting. Drum and bass. Okay, let's do new. Yep. Let's okay, audio capture device. It's down here. Boom. There we go. Okay, so what do we got here? We have retrowave, classic rock, slam punk, Eurobeat, drum and bass, uplifting, shake my head uplifting, not sure what this is saying, boom shakalaka lama. Okay, you know what I reckon I'm going to do? We'll do some Eurobeaty sort of stuff. Eurobeat. Notice the comments. Okay, let's try making that into a track now. Let's go. That's a show. Hope you enjoyed it. It's quite a good track. Okay, keep that one. Nice. Okay. Great to see you all. Yes, indeed, Davo. It's almost ready to go. It's almost out of bed. It's one or two final bugs. Have a play with it because it's a lot's happened. Of course, you can use intercom to give me messages if you see anything. And yeah, I'll see you all next week. So enjoy the World Cup final. And as always, peace. Boom. Boom. There we go. The camera is lined up differently this time. There we go. See ya. And remember to like if you like.